When you look at Homer, if you read Homer closely, there are hardly anyone you would want a kid to emulate in anything like the Iliad or the Odyssey. And what's funny, like what struck me, and I'm late coming to all of these great books. I mean, I read a lot of philosophy when I was growing up because I liked being, frankly, a turd, and it was really fun to be reading the Communist Manifesto in Pretty Prairie, Kansas in 1995, or like Kierkegaard, having to spell it out for the German librarian. But this great book stuff, which I love now and try to teach as much as I can, I didn't read Homer until very late, like as far as my life goes. And when I read it, because you hear your whole life that Homer is just this guy who has beloved heroes, and it's really wooden and obvious who's good, and the morality just doesn't match up with our day and age. And then you read the Iliad and the Odyssey, and you're like, this is the most profoundly inaccurate description of those two books that you could ever find. Those two books are brutal. You want to talk about realism that I don't think people in the 21st century ever approach. Read the Iliad, read it slow. Read its depiction of war, and you start to understand why certain psychologists think that when soldiers come back from war suffering from PTSD, they should read the Iliad, because he thinks it would help them get through some of the things they're going through. What a weird, inaccurate description that what the Homer throws out to us, or even Virgil, is just sort of like toy versions of the good guys and obvious versions of the bad. That one particularly sticks with me because I think one legitimate read of the Iliad is how great the Trojans are. And like, gee whiz, it's too bad that we Greeks come from one side and not the other. So it's funny that we, who will advocate for the great books, will defend just as wooden an idea of those books, as if why we read those books is because they got good moral lessons for kids. I'm like, what moral lessons would those be? Don't be powerful enough to make rivers mad at you and get in warfare with rivers. So Achilles learns. What? That doesn't make sense. If you're ever stuck on an island, the sexual slave of a witch, and you're like, oh, okay, this is... What? That doesn't make sense, right? But that's the Odyssey. We don't even need to get into the wonderful, delightful, insane humor of Chaucer. I feign to think what moral tale you are trying to convince a high schooler of when you teach them the Miller's Tale. What you think, is going to come up in their life, If you ever have a jealous husband, This gets to what I think is the problem with the sort of theorized idea about what makes a book great. What it comes down to is how we all basically read literature incorrectly. And I put out Tony's warning here. I'm not saying that like our generation is somehow naturally dumb or something silly like this. But because we are a cultural animal and we breathe in the air whether we want to or not, it is hard not to read, especially literature, like everyone else does, which to me is more akin to looking through a VHS manual to figure out how to record a show. I'm showing how old I am, right? Remember in the 90s we were like, how do I record a show that's going to happen in 2 hours? I can't miss The Simpsons or whatever. So you go to the manual and you try to find information you want, and then you go find it. There it is. And now you have some technical knowledge, and you're good to go. I think we will encourage kids to read literature the same way. And how profoundly narrow and limpid do we make people read when we teach them to do this? Now, we don't do this so overtly, and it sounds really good, what we want to say. Oh, we want you to read blank because we want you to be a good kid, right? We want you to be heroic. We want you to be strong-willed. We want you to believe in the truth. And so you give them whatever the book is, and it's like a manual, and they're going to go flip through. And I read a lot of papers. This is how kids write. This is not their fault. They were taught by adults. For them, 80% of the book is blah, 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 the information I should parrot back. Blah, 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 the information that Bo made a big deal about, so obviously I should include this quote. Blah, 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 blah. This is why kids, when they'll see big books, groan. They'll read hundreds and thousands of pages if it's about like Harry Potter or something else and have no problem with that. They probably read War and Peace amount of Twitter a week. It's not the length, but what they think reading is about. And so if they think that what they need to do with a 5 to 10 page paper is find the golden nuggets of information preconceived before they go to read, what 800 pages is 750 pages of fluff. Because if you read to find the golden nuggets and extract it like it's some sort of mineral and then put it up on your wall, you're already missing it out.